Hey, what's up everyone? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the Figma Captain America from the Avengers. You know, when I first opened it I didn't like the figure a whole lot, but it's growing on me quite a bit, so this review is probably going to go back and forth a little bit. So you're going to have to just make up your own mind based on what I point out objectively. My personal opinion is, as of right now, it's a pretty decent figure actually. It does have some flaws that bug me a lot, but it's pretty good. It's a little bit smaller than I expected it would be compared to Iron Man. He seems pretty short. And I know based on comics and based on the movies, the sizes go up and down. But he's just over 6 inches tall, and Iron Man came in at 6.5. The Figma Iron Man was noticeably thicker and a little bit taller than the Marvel Legends version. Here's the Marvel Legends version of Captain America. Now I think he was probably too tall in the first place, because he's like he's over 6.5 inches, so he makes this guy look a lot smaller. But I think the scaling's probably good enough for most Marvel Legends that this guy will work. He's gonna look a little bit small against most of them, since they have been getting a little bit bigger, or at least a little bit taller like this one. But as you can see, it's a much nicer looking figure. It doesn't have any of the texturing though, which is a little bit disappointing because I thought they would do some. He's almost completely smooth. So while this guy doesn't have any paint work really, at least not a whole lot, this guy doesn't have any texturing. So it's kind of a hit or miss type of situation, I guess. I don't know which one's more accurate in terms of the white part on the bicep. I didn't look that up. So if you want to look that up and let me know, that sounds like a good idea. I do think that the Figma one looks a lot more like Chris Evans. I don't think that looks like him at all. I think that looks quite a bit like him. Okay, so let's talk about what he came with really quick. Of course, we got our Figma display stage and a baggie to store all of our spare parts. We have the tool to position the eyes, because he does have articulated eyes, and I'll show you that later. We have a tree with some hands on it. I already took one of the hands off and put it on this. I guess I should say not open. Then we have 2 gripping hands with a wider grip. Then we have 2 gripping hands that are meant for holding the shield. And let's see if they did the pose. Yeah, holding the shield in that pose right there. Or I guess technically you can have him throwing it with that hand. And then he has the 2 completely open hands for the style pose, as I like to call it. And we get, of course, the 2 fists that come on the figure. I already took the one off. I'll go ahead and pop that back on right now. And we get 1 finger pointing hand. So pretty good array of hands. And then lastly, of course, we get the shield, which is nicely painted. Mine has a little bit, oh, that came off, so it doesn't. Nicely painted. The red, white, and blue looks pretty darn good. The silver, red, and blue. Silver backside with the painted straps, so that's good. They painted the buckle. That's good. Now we have some negative things, or at least one negative thing. No, 2 negative things to mention. These straps come off so you can get his arm in there and get his hand around there, which is fine, but they come off way too easily. Once you get the arm in there, these things just pop off like crazy. Left and right, they're falling off, so it's really hard to get him to keep the shield on his arm. The other thing that bothers me is this loop is way too big. It's way bigger than his forearm, so it tends to not hold it in place at all. But we'll get to that a little bit more later. Like I said, this guy looks really good. The whites are clean. There's a little bit of like a black lining throughout that mid section right there, so it looks really good. The reds are nice and solid. The paintwork on this guy is really nice. I do wish he had some more texturing. Like I said, he's really smooth compared to the Legends, and if I remember correctly, he didn't look smooth. It's not like he was wearing leather. I think he had like a to him. But that being said, he still does look really good. And in fact, as I'm looking at him now, I'm even liking the figure more and more, despite the flaws that I'm going to be pointing out. So, you know, maybe that makes it a little bit better. Or is it worse because I didn't like it at first? I'm not sure. We do have some nicely sculpted details, like the A on his head. Those are all sculpted. We just don't have the texturing. The little zippers everywhere, sculpted detail. And we have a little bit of texturing down here around the knee, I guess. Some strap right there. You know, what is sculpted is done really cleanly. The paints are really nice. The silvers are nice and silver. The star looks good. So, you know, maybe I was being a bit too harsh talking about the textures. It still looks really good. So let's talk about the articulation really quickly. I'll just take it off to show you. The neck looks like this. It's essentially a hinge. It does technically go, does rotate, but you would never need it to. So this is just a hinge that gets covered up by this top piece, which is obviously a soft material. The problem with that hinge is once this soft piece is in place, you can't use it because it's glued on like right up here. So that hinge is basically pointless. So we have a peg that goes in there, so that'll give us our side-to-side motion. And then of course we have our hinge and our ball peg, which is standard for Figma. So the head is on a ball peg on the top here, so that'll move around, and then it's hinged. And of course you can rotate the hinge around sideways so you can lean the head to the side even more, but you can get pretty good poses out of it just the way it comes out of the box. So that's okay by me. You could have been, I think this piece probably should have come around more squarely to hide that gap. But it's not bad, and you can definitely get enough posing out of it. You can lean the head back a little bit, not a huge amount, but you can have him look up some. And you can probably get a little more out of it too if you try hard enough. But it's not as great as it could have been. He can definitely look down just fine. I'll show you the eyes right now, so all you have to do is pop off the back or the front, depending on which one you're talking about. Pop that off, and then with your little tool, just as I've showed you before, put that tool over the eye peg and pose it around however you want. So if you want him to look to the side, if I can do it, if you want him to look to the side, why is it falling off? It doesn't want me to do it. So apparently the way the head is sculpted on the inside, you cannot have the eye look too far. Just be careful as you're posing it, which end you're using, and you should be able to give him a good googly eye. No problem at all. The one thing that does bug me a little bit about the eyes is that they don't have any detail to them. They're just greenish blue dots for the irises and the pupil. Definitely could use a bit of a paint job. And you guys should know by now that I hate having to modify my collection pieces. I really don't like that. So that's a bit irritating. I'm never going to get this to line back up on camera, am I? That's going to drive. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. But yeah, it definitely needs a pupil and some shading, or not shading, but like a glare, little white dot for glare next to the pupil. That would make it look really good. But it's still not too bad. You know, you don't really notice it too much because of the helmet and everything. Okay, so the chest is this soft piece of material, which I'm not really sure why they bother doing that. I understand wanting to have it be a separate piece to give the arms a nice clearance to put the arms straight down, which I don't personally think is that necessary to begin with. But making the chest a soft piece doesn't really help because you're not going to really want to fold it up and bunch it up. It's going to look weird, I think, no matter... I guess it doesn't look too weird from some angles, but I don't know. I could either take it or leave it, I guess. It depends on the application, but it is a soft piece, so that's something to be aware of. I'll show you how it's designed. We just have a ball peg in there, the shoulders, ball peg going into the torso. There's a hinge for the actual shoulder. These have little slits in them so they can move around. And then it's looks like a standard peg going in there, so you can rotate the arm around on that peg like that, and then we have the hinge there, no problems. The elbow looks like they went with a little bit of a new design, so it's a peg going in to the bicep. We have the hinge here, and then it's actually a ball peg, it looks like, going into the forearm. So you can get the arm to move pretty much how you want it to, and then the wrists, standard little ball hinges, swivel on either end, and a hinge in the middle, of course. So I don't really know how I feel about the cavity that they created in the upper torso in order to let the arms go down like that. It just seems... It really depends on how you pose it, I guess. Sometimes it's going to look horrible and sometimes it's going to look just fine. So it's really up to you. And now you can see the rest of the articulation for the torso. Ball peg going down, standard peg going up, and then the hinge in the middle. That goes in there. So you can lean him from side to side depending on how you have that hinge, and you can just kind of fiddle with it to get it to go where you want. You can give him an ab crunch to bring him forward. You can lean dependent on your particular posing as to how good or how bad it looks. It doesn't look horrible, but it can. if you're not careful, especially the way they did these kind of wings back here. That can get pretty ugly. And then same thing with this flap here. It doesn't want to stay down always, so you're going to have to be careful with how you pose it. That said, once you do get it posed, it can look really good. They did a good job somehow turning all of these weird pieces into a decent looking sculpt. So kudos to Figma for that, or good smile. Then of course for the torso, we don't have an extra ab crunch in here like Iron Man and Thor had, so we just have the one up here, and then we have the ball peg down here that gives him all this other range of motion and articulation. This is a soft piece. The belt is connected to the crotch. It's just a three-way ball peg, one going into the torso and one going into either leg. So we have a socket on the ball there that'll move around like this. You can bring the leg about that far forward, which should be fine, side to side. Definitely better than Iron Man, no problems there. And then of course we can swivel around on that joint in there. So that's pretty good for the legs. The knee joints don't stand out nearly as much on this guy. They did a much better job. Even though, as is standard for Figma, you can see the joint, it's not nearly as bad, so that's good. The ankles have just a peg that goes in like that. So we have the standard hinge for the ankle, except for some reason, and I don't know if this is an error and maybe that they're going to correct in a second batch or something, the ankle joint is a big one instead of a small one, and give the ankle rocker much better range of motion. This one's the big one, and it fills that cavity pretty well, so you can only wiggle it a little bit. Then we do have a toe hinge that works a little bit more, and we just can't do that. And then of course this piece gets in the way. It's actually a really nice looking joint, you just don't get that ankle rocker range of motion. It's not so bad going forward and back though, and you can probably, by pulling it out a little bit, or all the way, but you want to pull it out a little bit this way, pull this joint away, pull this out a little bit, and well, it doesn't really help the ankle rocker too much, so that's not going to help. That's disappointing. It's not horrible. You do get a little bit of an ankle rocker, but it's not as good as it could have been. I don't think I mentioned it. The trunk area here is split at that seam so that it doesn't get in the way of posing the leg too much. So after looking at this figure in a little bit more detail while talking to you guys about it, it's grown on me even more. So I do like it. I did not like it at all at first, and it's just been growing on me ever since. It does tend to look really good once you get it posed. The weird shapes back here in the cavity just kind of disappear. So that's pretty good. Now, before I go, before you stop watching, I want to show you the shield issue. So I'm going to put the hand on it with the gripping hand. Is that the right one? Yeah. Alright, so you want to put the hand around the small piece and this one around the forearm, right? I don't see what else you would want to do with that. So we'll do that. We'll slide this in the hand, and we'll slide this one over everything else. Actually, we'll just put it on after. So you want to peg these in, and they have little keyhole shapes in them. You can kind of see that in there, so you can't put them in the wrong spot. So you'll see that when you have it. So that's in there. As you can see, it doesn't hold it very tight at all already. So you're gonna have to be careful. And then we will put this one in, and I'll show you what I mean about it being too loose. Neither of the straps fit snugly, so the shield is just kind of flopping, and it's not going to take too much. Well, of course it's not going to do it now. It's very easy to pop the straps out. They don't take much at all. So if you're posing him once the shield's already in his hand or on his arm, you're going to have to be really careful. They don't take much at all to come out. So I mean, it's not a huge flaw, but it's something you have to be aware of because, like I said, it will pop out. Okay, and then before I go, one last thing I guess with the shield is I should show you how the hands work. These flat hands, they are really flat, and that's just because they're meant to just slide over. And they look fine once he's holding it, no problem. I wish it kind of had more of a gripping look to it rather than just that flat standing there hand, but that's okay. I guess that's it. Yeah, just the two flat hands. So you can put him in that pose like they keep showing from the movie cover. You know, you can just put his hands on there like that if you want to, or have him throwing it, and that works fine. And you can hold it, so that's good. I like this figure a lot, actually. I'm really happy that it grew on me throughout the video. Be more figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, Netpo sucks. Keep collecting.